Hello, lovely listeners of the Saber Pod. We have a fun one for you today.
Very fun.
We talked to Dr. Tiffany Cortes, who's an endocrinologist who's doing a lot of work here on campus at the Barshop Institute, which she kind of goes into because I hadn't really heard much about it before we started talking to her about it.
For sure.
And she looks at metabolic processes in older adults, so kind of this intersection of aging and weight and obesity and what changes are associated when those things intersect.
Right.
Which
is
really
like
cool.
the biggest. It's like, did you want to investigate everything in medicine all at once?
I know.
And that's kind of what she does, which is awesome and scary at the same time.
But it was a really fascinating conversation that started off really with a tour, which I wasn't expecting. We got a whole tour of her clinic space that she works in because she's one of the clinical research leaders at the Barshop Institute. Again,
Indeed.
We'll go into it. But she showed us this really cool room with all this equipment and exercise stuff and their own lab space.
They have a lot of tech at the Barshop Institute.
Yes.
And it's all just kind of like in these two front rooms where the patients kind of just enter and then they go into these testing rooms. And there's a million different scans and machines and there's weights. There's a gym. There's a whole gym in there. And they can use all of that to study aging. It's awesome.
Like they have them do exercise. This isn't an exact study that they're talking about, but like there's a space to go exercise and then you can go get blood work done right next door and then they can process the blood work and look at markers that they're interested in. So it's a whole deal. It's really cool.
And then that research goes to the back of house where there's also just like basic science labs with rats and mice and the usual type of, the basic science research going on all in the same building. So
it's really cool, and it's right here on campus. So it was really a good opportunity to kind of see that. But we won't keep you too long. We'll get into our conversation just a little bit though about Dr. Cortes.
Yes, go for it. Or I'm going for it. Me.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Also, we didn't introduce ourselves.
Oh, right.
But I'm Ren.
And I'm Lily.
And now you know us.
Okay.
Dr. Cortes is an endocrinologist and clinical assistant professor at the University of Texas Health Science Center, San Antonio, and a physician investigator at the VA in San Antonio, Texas. Her academic focus is on the intersection of metabolic dysfunction, insulin resistance, and age-related functional decline in older adults, and her research is currently focused on characterizing the effects of newer anti-obesity pharmacotherapies, such as GLP-1 receptor agonists, on physical function, body composition, muscle, and bone, and also biomarkers of aging. And we'll start with her kind of telling us more about the Barshop Institute that she gave us a tour of right now.
The Barshop Institute it sounds silly, but it's a building because you hear kind of centers and institutes like across campus and you're like, what are you talking about? So this is the Barshop Institute for Longevity and Aging Studies. And within this building, all of us are pretty much, our aim is to try to help people live longer and healthier lives, really help to improve health span, help to improve functionality. And we do this kind of from bench work, preclinical models, translational science to clinical trials that you guys kind of like walk through a little bit earlier today. And within this building, we have a few large grants that help to fund the research that's done here and to help to kind of get like early investigators on board as well. And we have the Nathan Shock Center, which is focused more on like the preclinical side of biology of aging and research studies, to the Pepper Center, which is more focused on like the translational to clinical trial side of it. And then we also have the interventions testing program. So we're one site, I want to say there's 3 or 4 across the country. And pretty much when somebody thinks a compound is of interest and may help to improve health span, longevity, or something like that, they don't want to just test it in one center under one team. They want to test it, replicate those studies across multiple centers. And so we're one of the centers that they tested at. So it's like if somebody thinks something's interesting, like, hey, yeah, let's see if it actually works. And if it works, then hopefully help to progress that molecule through or that compound through like clinical trials as well.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of studies focused on rapamycin, and that was actually started at the interventions testing program and kind of went from that. We think that it's a compound of interest all the way through how is it going to help to improve older adults, possibly lead healthier and longer lives. So this building kind of houses those 3 programs. And I mentioned that because with those 3 programs, as long as with on the VA side, the Geriatric Research Education Clinical Center, we are the only academic center in the country that has all four of them. So like the Barshop, it is, you hear people like don't know what it is, but we're actually nationally and internationally known and renowned for kind of being leaders of aging research. And so the Barshop Institute, it brings in like some of the most money in research dollars when you look at the institute kind of as a whole. And so it's really amazing kind of what's being done here. And when I go other places, I'm like, hi, I'm Tiffany, or like, this is what I do. They're like, oh, you're in San Antonio. And they are like, do you know this person, this person, this person? And like, I'm like, that's great what you're doing. And kind of even when you guys like walk through the clinic, we have other investigators from leading institutes that are like, oh my gosh, this is just amazing that you have all of this in one building and you're able to collaborate and communicate like so freely kind of across disciplines and to help to improve our outcomes. And so, yeah, I mentioned that because it's really cool. We have it in San Antonio. You don't have to go like to the East Coast or West Coast or other places to really be doing research.
Yeah. It's very exciting. It's almost like the model of what the ideal research space would be, right? You've got the preclinical and the clinical all in the same building. Everybody's talking. Like, it seems pretty next level.
Absolutely. And so it's like all of those different expertise, I feel very comfortable in not, I know, I like don't know things every day. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. But then it's like we all have areas of expertise, and we have people who are just doing great things like clinics and for circadian studies, and they're wanting to have clinical trials. I'm like, yeah, like I can help you with that part. You teach me what you're doing. I can teach you what I'm doing. And like we work together to help to promote science.
Yeah. Awesome. And then additionally with like the San Antonio population, I feel like this has come up a lot with people that we've talked about, but just kind of like how unique that population is and how it breeds a really like fertile ground for research in terms of like an aging population. And I think like proximity to like the Diabetes Institute and that intersection as well. And just the idea that those populations are being represented in cutting edge research.
Absolutely. I think it's so important. Like there's one when I kind of talked to the community about what we're doing, I did a verbal kind of like, hey, these are all the different institutes, but then I actually put them on a map and like you see where everything's at. And then you're just like, this is very isolated, like in the middle of the country. And then even in Texas. And I'm like, yeah, like this is, so when I talk to our community members to get them just aware about the research or kind of like possibly interested in it, or maybe hopefully it's just not the first time that they've heard it. Like one part of it is we want your voice. We want our community to be representative in these large trials in what is going to be like the next generation for medications or interventions. We want to make sure that we're having this diverse population that's being represented because of course we have our Asian population, high Hispanic population, but then even thinking about like we're really close to like rural populations and we have the border population too. We have large military presence, the veterans that are here, and kind of like that intersection. Refugees, like it is pretty interesting, kind of like the variety and diversity of people that were able to enroll into our studies. And it's like really getting that word out there. Like, you definitely don't have to enroll, but like just to be aware about what's going on in your backyard.
Absolutely.
So it's always fun to ask these researchers who have these like blossoming or like really impressive careers what it was like when they were in our shoes. But in this case, it's even cooler because she was literally in our shoes. She went to UTHSCSA for medical school, and so we kind of asked her what her journey was like when she was here as a student.
Absolutely. So I graduated in 2013. People are getting like further and further away. But it's always, I do the lectures for obesity and for hypoglycemia, and it's like so weird. I was like, this is the same lecture hall. Like I was on the other side and now talking, and like not a lot in some areas, not a lot has changed. And then we have our new hospitals, which I keep on getting lost in. So I'm from Corpus Christi. I came up to San Antonio a lot. I was a part of the JAMP program, and so I interviewed kind of at all of the medical schools, and I just love San Antonio. I love the community that we had here and who I'd be able, like who my colleagues are going to be. And so I wanted to come here, and I've always been so happy with that choice, as happy as you could be. Like, and I think it's also changed because like when I was in medical school, like I was in class like all day long. Thankfully, it is not all day long, it seems like anymore, because I was a little crazy. And then I'd be like in the library. So I was like, I enjoyed it. But then I was like in lecture and then in the library studying. Where
Never see the sun.
yeah, never see the sun. And then it was like, you have your weekend, we'd have our tests. And I'm like, oh, thank God, we're done. But so I love my training here. Training at University Hospital as a third year. It just, gives you that broad spectrum of experience where you just feel very comfortable kind of going into multiple situations. When I was in medical school, I didn't really think I was going to do research. I worked with the student run free clinics and I had some like posters with them and I helped like with the organization of Night of the Arts.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We're both gonna work on the talent team.
Oh, fun.
Oh, I'll be emailing you.
And no, I have no talent. And we were on that, and then I was like trying to get like the food and things donated.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that was a lot of fun. But so from there I kind of with rotations, I always thought I wanted to do internal medicine and doing rotations. I was like, yep, this is what I want to do. Interview kind of across Texas and a few other places. As time goes on, I keep on forgetting where I interviewed at what stage, but I interviewed in Galveston and I did a summer program there, and I did not like my summer program there at all. And like I even remember driving over like the bridge to I was like my best friend and we interviewed pretty much everywhere together. I was like, dude, we're not gonna go here. Like, I feel like maybe it was it was sometime where it's like we're so tired.
Yeah.
And so you did everything in person, and I was like, dude. And then we went there, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it was like you get that feel like the people and that group, and so it was there that I started to do research in diabetes with Dr. Balgazar and doing like chart review, doing some abstracts. Didn't have any papers, but kind of just getting my foot in the door, starting to become more interested. And it was one of the I think he was like the dean of medicine or internal medicine, something of that nature. He was an endocrinologist and spoke to my best friend and I was like, hey, like, you should really apply broadly and kind of see what your options are. And I really like where I was in Galveston. I always knew I wanted to come back to San Antonio. And so kind of through that wide variety of interviewing, with the bit of research experience that I had in residency, I did my fellowship at Mayo Clinic in Rochester. And with that program, endocrinologist is a 2-year fellowship. That was when I was there, it was a 3-year fellowship. You had a year of research.
Oh, okay.
Even at that time, I was like, I'm not going to do research. Pretty much all I was like, I'm not going to do this. I in my year of research, I worked with Shereen, who's an amazing mentor, and we took a look at insulin deprivation and the change in cognitive function in patients with type 1 diabetes. And me and my colleague Anna Creo, we did everything from like the IOD paperwork, recruiting, doing all the procedures, right? Like doing some of the analysis and working with statisticians because the analysis can be complicated, writing the paper and doing the procedure. So I joked when I was like, I was like, I'm never going to do research. I'm never going to do research. I'm not going to do research. Part of this research, we did muscle biopsies. And when I was done, I was like, oh my God, yeah, I'm never going to have to do that again. I took a look at some jobs like private practice, community-based, and there's pretty much like for endocrinology, just like UTHSCSA, and they didn't have a full-time clinical position. And I was like, I want to be in San Antonio. That's what I want to be. And that's when my research mentor was like, I know somebody in San Antonio who does research, Nick Musey. He's the director of the Barshop Institute. And I was like, I I don't know. I don't want to do research. Yeah. But I was like, let's just see what happens. And so I interviewed them. I interviewed with him, Sarah Spinoza, a few other people. Nick and Sarah became my mentors. And Sarah even commented later. She's like, when I was talking with you, you actually said you don't know if you want to do research. I was like, yeah, that sounds like something I would say. And then she was like, she spoke with Nick and she's like, she doesn't know she wants to do this. And when I talked with Nick, he was like, Tiffany, we can give you 40% time, 60% clinical. You want to do more research, we can guide you in that. You don't want to do more research, like you can do more clinical later on. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I totally like fell into it, and I was like, and I think it's like having what is your goal, what is your most important thing, and kind of other things fall into place. And so that's when I finished fellowship in 2019. I started working here and having my clinical practice across the street, doing research here. And then a few months later, COVID hit. And so once I got my feet, I'm like, oh yeah, I got the feeling of this. Then everything changes.
Yeah.
But pretty much like throughout that time, I first started to get involved with the research here by really being hands-on and seeing kind of like, what did the recruiters do? What do we do in the consent? What procedures did we do? How do we do the short performance battery? How are we doing the other kind of physical function testing? How are we following up people? What is the data analysis? How do you even make like red cap for the data? So I feel like that's just something like for me to understand what's going on, I have to understand like all aspects of what's going on. And so for the first few years, I did a lot of that. Then kind of having that understanding then helped me to help other people when they would have questions. And they're like, oh yeah, Tiffany, like, how do you do this consent, or how do you do this IRB modifications, and kind of like progressing from there. And then that developed going through working with my mentors, kind of developing that interest that I have in endocrinology for older adults, taking like a GLP-1 receptor agonist. And I was awarded an RL5, which is an Early Career Development Award through the Pepper Center. And I was able to get my pilot taking like semaglutide in older adults, and was a change in body composition and physical function through that program. But really it was my mentors who helped a lot, because medications are really expensive, and that pilot did not cover all of the medications. And it was every time I just remember talking, I'm like, y'all, like, this is what we say we're gonna do and what the money is, like, it doesn't quite match. And they were like, it's fine, it's gonna work out. And I'm like, okay. And then pretty much when I was starting my pilot, my main mentors actually left to Cedars-Sinai.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, it was kind of a complete change, and I'm like, oh, and they were still my mentors, but like they were in like different institutions, and like kind of like they changed at different times. I was in the middle of my pilot. I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to go for it. I have no idea how this is going to look. And that's Dr. Elena Volpe, who we saw in the stairway. She became director about 2 years ago. And Dr. Blake Rasmussen, both from UTMB. So like I was like, yeah, we did not know each other at all, but we're like, oh, small world. Yeah. Both from UTMB came over here to kind of take with that transition. But yeah, I was like, so you can be completely lost, and you just kind of keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I told her, I was like, you know what? I got this far. I'm gonna finish this pilot, and we're just gonna see what happens from there. Then with Blake and Elena coming on board, like, it's been amazing, and kind of then transitioning more from being the person who's doing everything to helping to like lead a team and kind of help other people develop their projects. And so I'm the director for the clinical unit, the research unit downstairs, and then I'm also associate leader for the clinical trials portion of the Pepper Center.
So one of the biggest parts of the research that Dr. Cortes talked about with us was her pilot study, which was one of the first things that she kind of was in charge of and involved with at the Barshop Institute. That was the gateway to a lot of the research project that she's currently doing. And a pilot study, just for definition, is kind of like a study in which physicians or researchers try to figure out the methods to a study, kind of like the feasibility of, can we do this, should we do this, is this intervention worth investigating further. It's kind of like a small starter study into what can be like a larger, like huge stage of research.
Yeah, it's kind of a way to work out kinks on a smaller scale when you're wanting to look at an intervention, so that way you don't fall into those pitfalls when you do the larger scale. Honestly, kind of like a pilot episode of a TV show.
Pilot season,
where it's like a proof of concept thing before you invest in like 8 seasons of a show. So that way you can figure out what does and doesn't work at this onset.
Exactly. So she'll talk about her GLP-1 receptor pilot study now.
There's no small pilot, and even a short pilot, it kind of like takes so much more time. So I had the idea for a pilot, and then I got over 6 months, applied for the RL5, got the RL5, did the IRB. It got lost in IRB kind of nonsense. The process has improved, but I was like, I'm not getting anything back. It's very weird. And then I started it, and then even after my 2 years of finishing with the program, I still wasn't done with the pilot yet. And the pilot was just taking a look at 20 older adults who had pre-diabetes or well-controlled diabetes with either overweight or obesity, and half of them being kind of on standard of care lifestyle changes for meeting with a dietitian, talking about exercise recommendations for 5 months, and the other half, so 10 and 10, the other 10 people were on the lifestyle, meeting with a dietitian, as well as semaglutide up to 1 milligram. And so titrating up from 0.25, 0.5, and then up to 1 milligram. And then they just, over 5 months, they were on that intervention at baseline and post. And at the end of intervention, we took a look at body composition. So we didn't use a fancy DEXA that was downstairs. It was an old DEXA. So we were able to get body composition, able to do physical function testing, short physical performance battery, 6-minute walk, grip strength. And then we did muscle and adipose biopsies, got blood samples to kind of take a look at biomarkers, aging, inflammation, and what are changes from that. And so as that project was winding down, Monica put me in touch with one of her colleagues at Wake Forest, Kristen Beavers, who's really interested in kind of what is the effect of lifestyle intervention on bone mineral density and fracture risk. And she's like, oh, I'd love to take a look at collaborate with you on your data. And so we got a small pilot to take a look at what are changes in bone turnover markers. With Nick and Sarah being in California, they were still very invested in completing the primary aims of the project. And so I actually just had a meeting with him, taking a look at they're finishing looking at senescence in the adipose tissue. We did some hormone metabolomic data, as well as taking a look at mitochondrial function of the muscle. And then they're going to do single nuclei analysis for the adipose tissue, and then working with Blake Rasmussen here. We are having a meeting where we're going to be working with his lab has kind of used the muscle samples, taking a look at muscle histology, transcriptomics, metabolomics, proteomics. And so kind of having these two areas. So the small pilot is, even though it's small and we're all we may see absolutely nothing, but even getting that experience, because I'm an endocrinologist. I never wanted to do research, and now I'm here doing and it's been 6 years. And so I'm I always talk to my colleagues at the bar. I was yeah, there's a lot I don't know here. I know people. I know this part of it. All this makes sense. And I'm learning. So all those words I said, I'm figuring out what the heck all that means. How do we run those analyses? What does it look like? How are we going to present the data? What statistical analysis are we doing? All of that. So there's still, even after all that training and all that jazz, I'm still in an area where I'm yeah, I'm so green and all of that. and it's still, I work with great people, and they're yes, we're helping you with this part, and then I'm working on additional kind of areas from this.
After she talked about the pilot study, she went into all these collaborations that kind of came out of working at this institution along all these people with the project that she was doing. And oh my gosh, it was so many things that she's working on.
She has a lot of pots cooking.
Exactly.
A lot of different things.
So we'll just go ahead and summarize them here for you now. The first one that she talked about was collaborating with Dr. Odessa Addison at the University of Maryland in Baltimore, and they were kind of trying to understand how to measure muscle function by looking at muscular stimulation and exercise, and specifically what of those interventions can help older adults on GLP-1 receptor agonists, because that's a really great drug for weight loss, but it can also cause lean muscle mass. Right. And so they're kind of trying to figure out what is a way that we can preserve muscle mass in these particular populations, which I thought was really cool.
Very much. And another one that she discussed, a collaboration coming out of the past month, was evaluating the pharmacokinetics of mTOR inhibitors with doctors Brett Ginsburg, Dean Kellogg, and Ellen Craig here at UTHSCSA. They want to understand the doses at which important changes start to kick in with mTOR inhibition.
I was surprised they hadn't done that before, but it seems important to understand
doses.
When do we see these changes?
For sure.
One that I liked that she talked about, she mentioned when we were doing that tour downstairs of kind of the clinic space, but she nicknames it the hot tub time machine.
Yes.
It's not really a hot tub, but essentially there was this study that showed that mice who were exposed to really low levels of ultrasonic waves for a consistent amount of time had these really positive changes in aging processes and inflammation. Which is super cool because it's so non-invasive and relatively easy. And so what they're doing here at the clinic is they're inviting older adults to come and basically take a bath in lukewarm water a few times a week.
Sign me up. Like, sounds great.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And then on top of that, you might be getting these aging benefits.
Right. Anti-aging time machine. I'll take it.
They have to see if it works. Yeah.
Right.
But I think it's a fun study.
It's super cool. So in the same room with the hot tub time machine, we also were able to look around the room and see that there were cameras set up just all around the room, police state style. That was kind of interesting. And then Dr. Cortes also told us there were pressure plates under the floor. And that is for a study that is aimed at helping mid-career active duty firefighters, military, and SWAT professionals to anticipate the injuries and stress that might happen on the job that can be potentially career ending or career limiting. And these cameras and pressure plates and all that are designed to kind of make a digital twin of these middle-aged workers in the middle of their career to kind of figure out what we can do to prevent certain accidents and keep them in the field longer, which is really exciting.
I thought it was really cool.
That was so cool. It's like that's a Matrix tech that they're working with.
The same kind of movie tech that they use to track people's motion to make a Gollum-like character, except it's to help firefighters work for as long as they want to.
Yeah,
which I thought was awesome.
It was so cool. Given the amount of medics I've met whose backs are already broken and they're 40, it's such a needed thing. So it's really cool.
Yeah. She also talked about working at the VA. Right now, they're evaluating sort of the relationship between adiposity and long COVID. So they're comparing people with non-obese BMIs with people who meet that range for obesity and looking at function or metrics like VO2 max and function. And the question is, if we encourage people to lose weight, do their metrics change in such a way that they mimic those who never had long COVID?
Right.
So that was interesting and one that I wouldn't have thought of.
Good to know that someone's studying that.
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
And another kind of high-tech thing that surprised me that Dr. Cortes is working on is a study out of the University of Kansas. She is working with folks who have created a kind of Dr. Scholl's-like insole to measure gait abnormalities and be able to detect them early using AI technology. So she is piloting the clinical trials for that device, which is awesome.
Yeah, a lot of stuff that's not invasive, that applies to older adults with these metabolic conditions, really anything that you can imagine, and then stuff that you never would have imagining.
Right.
It was really fun.
Super cool.
And we talked about if this sounds like a lot of things that we just listed right now, we talked to her about how many things it was.
It was a lot, yeah, we did.
You're juggling a lot of balls. So many different cool projects.
I was it's really so. The good thing about and that's even so I was I feel like that was yesterday, but I don't know. A lot of my days kind of mesh in together. I was I remember the action, but I was I don't know when in timeline that fell.
Yeah.
And then I have a 14-month-old at home, but she's getting older, so I can't even blow. I was she's still I'm sleeping well. I can't blame her anymore. But I'm still when did things go on?
Wow.
And so, but it's working with kind of this amazing group of people and collaborating. I'm very much at that stage where I'm yeah, sure, let's work on this. Yeah, sure, let me help with that.
That's awesome.
And kind of I know that y'all talked with Dr. Rao, and so we collaborate a lot too.
Oh,
and
cool.
so I'm really interested in kind of helping her with her resilience project and what's coming up from that. And she's going to start being at the VA, so trying to help her with hey, yeah, this is what I'm doing here, and these are the grants the grant that I submitted over there. So it's been great working. Every day is something different. Is it better or worse? Yeah.
I like how too, the idea of aging research is different from how I picture it. I feel I'm picturing mostly just working with older adults, but it sounds especially with the mid-career firefighters and paramedics, or even the insole project, those are processes of aging that you're thinking about starting that are starting earlier, or like looking, investigating at earlier stages than.
Absolutely. And it's even where Dr. Rowe and I were discussing this, because we were an area of interest is kind of people who that transition out of active duty service, and then like transitioning to the VA and transitioning into kind of civilian life, and how like that's actually like a huge stressor. And we even think about like that kind of like accelerates, like could that be accelerating the aging process, and how can we help then our veterans have improved outcomes? Is that, should we be targeting then people earlier on? And that's even kind of where this, when we're taking a look at helping to improve aging, absolutely we have older adults, but then it's like, should we be intervening? At what time? Or there are like those high stress times where you're like, we can be doing something more at this time to help to improve the aging.
We also asked Dr. Cortes about a paper that she published and worked on recently in the journal Obesity, with an exclamation point, for emphasis. Yes, for emphasis. And she was just kind of looking at the aging process, talking about things like bone density and muscle mass, so really related to her GLP-1 studies that she was talking about. And I just kind of asked her if she had any nuggets of wisdom from working on that paper that she wanted to share about the aging process, and things that we should know or anticipate for like ourselves and our loved ones who are, aging.
Yeah. And from the collaboration that I had with Kristen Beaver, she was invited to have this review, and she's like, Tiffany, do you want to help me to be a part of this? I'm like, sure. And then we were both like there was a group of 4 of us, and we're like, oh my God, this is a really short timeline. I'm never going to do this again. Why did we sign up for this? Yeah. It's still like all worked out. And then we were in the middle of like submission or revision. We were in the middle of revisions, and so I adopted my baby girl, and so that's when actually it was a very fast transition where I was like in the middle of transitions. I mean, in the middle of revisions, and I was like, "Oh, hey y'all, so I may be becoming a mom in like 2 days," and so we and they're like, "Oh my God, like yes, Tiffany." So working with an amazing group of people, they're like, do whatever you need to do. And it was like, I was like, there just wasn't a lot of notice. But that's how things go. And it's been amazing. But like with that collaboration, we were pretty much, our interest is in this area, especially with when we have these novel medications, GLP-1 receptor agonists, we're able to get weight loss that's kind of really similar to bariatric surgery. And so we're getting a lot of weight loss really quickly. And absolutely huge benefits. Like we have cardiometabolic benefits. We have like even benefits on osteoarthritis, renal benefits, and just like quality of life. Like people are feeling better on these medications. But when we take a look at older adults and we take a look at this very diverse population, what are considerations we should have? And I've mentioned this before, but I never thought about function as much as I do now. I never thought about like physical function. It just wasn't in my that's my primary focus now. Is like when I see an older adult, like how are you getting out of a chair? How many medications are you on? Like how are you actually doing?
How long can you be walking during the day?
Yeah.
Grocery shopping.
Yeah. And so with that consideration, it's like when we have these really powerful medications that we are able to, some people able to easily get, what are the considerations? We know that just with all lifestyle and bariatric surgery, when you have weight loss, muscle mass is a part of it. So about 25% of all weight loss is muscle mass. And so if you're taking a look at somebody who is already having sarcopenia, low muscle mass, and impairment of their physical function or frailty, then how is that? what is going to be the change when we have these significant losses in a kind of a short amount of time? Could we possibly be making these syndromes worse? Could we be making frailty worse? Could we be getting actually having people have sarcopenia? And so kind of our area of interest is like, what should you be looking out for? And that was pretty much it. It was like, hey, when you're evaluating older adults for these medications, even if it's not because we use them for diabetes, heart failure, obstructive sleep apnea, all of these other considerations, and they're great medications. But are there some people we should be optimizing a little bit better, looking at their physical function? If they're having difficulty getting out of a chair, why are they having difficulty getting out of a chair? Are they for physical therapy? What kind of exercises are they going through right now? Taking a look at their bone health. Do they have osteoporosis? Do they have osteopenia? Are they being treated? So like when we then have that intervention that could be having a lot of weight loss, we just want to try to maximize the benefits and minimize the risks.
Makes sense.
And so that was kind of like, what should we be thinking about physical function? How should we be testing? How should we take a look at bone mineral density, fracture risk, and things like that in that population?
Cool.
And then with that, I got to know kind of more people in this field of older adults and weight management. And I just came back from Obesity Week, where I was a part of a pre-conference talk focusing on how to like optimize healthcare for older adults with obesity. And so I know that it's like you said yes, and then you're like kind of like all these other doors kind of open up for you. And so I was really happy to be a part of that and working with kind of giving that talk and working with other experts in the field. And then also I'm part of the planning committee and working with my colleagues, and it's like, what should we be talking about next year? What is going to be helping clinicians the most and helping to improve clinical practice the most? So just a little bit about that, like pearls from that and kind of like where that led to.
For someone so certain that she would not be interested in research or go into research, we were really curious to hear kind of what changed Dr. Cortes's mind and how she, as the title says, yes-anded her way into the position that she holds today, and her perspective was quite enlightening.
For me, not wanting to do research, and now that's like 90% of what I do. I think it was that having that clinical practice at the same time that I had doing research and kind of seeing the differences in that. And tons of things make me mad. the job, tons of things frustrate me. It's not all happy-go-lucky, and you just kind of choose what you want to be frustrated in. And so like when in clinical practice, when I just felt like there were things I want, even like which patients I saw, which clinics, or, kind of trying to change things. And I felt like a lot of pushback in doing that. And I was like, and then versus on research where we were like, hey, this screening, like this isn't like, it's very clunky and we need to improve the process. And we were able to like quickly do that. And it was I felt like it was just much more satisfying to see like, here's a problem, this is what we need to do, and trying to change it and kind of having much more flexibility versus then in clinical practice. Like I love talking with patients. I love working with colleagues, but I was like, I wasn't able to change as much. And so that it kind of made it like a bit easier. And then getting the RL5, working with these other projects, and kind of like, you know what, I feel like I'm like my career is just switching in that area, and my mentor supported me, and I was able to work more at the VA to help to kind of do more research. And so for me, it was that different. So it was like, I just like being able, the different things I was doing and who I was collaborating with and who I was working with, and kind of exploring that more. And as I said, I was like, I don't have PhD. I didn't do any like really formalized training in this. And so I also want people to know that like, it doesn't matter what you think now or what you did. Like, it's never too late. And somebody may like give you an opportunity and you're like, sure, why not? That's when I accepted this job, I was like, I want to be in San Antonio. Sure. Like, and then it just kind of like progressed from there. I work with people who wholly like from undergrad, grad, like they are doing 100% what they thought that they were going to do. And that's not me. And, you're like, can just kind of go in like different places. And I think overall having that collaborative spirit and kind of just working with other people is what has led me to where I am today, because I don't have like a ton of genius ideas independently. And I'm like, I know all the answers, but I'm like, I know other people, and let's work together.
We've talked to a lot of other researchers who are like PhDs and have followed kind of the more traditional route towards research that you mentioned. And they definitely often, talk about the importance of like, you can't forget how to work with people though. And like, that's like, it's something that the MD colleagues tend to be able to like bring to the table that they're appreciative of.
Yes. And I think, and it's like that balance, that balancing it out. And so I was talking to y'all about MotorPack, our exercise study, and it was interesting, kind of just like I wasn't a part of the conversations, but as things changed, where we wanted to enroll people that very much looked like the cross section of America, enrolling females and males and minorities and kind of just and older adults. And when we were wanting to enroll older adults, kind of from one section, they were like, no, we can't have people on statins. Like statins could be altering like muscle function and it's going to cloud things. And then the clinicians were like,
you're gonna have so many older people who are on statins. This should be useful data for people who are
like a lot of older adults. Like what exactly? Like you're trying to be like representative. You don't want necessarily the picture perfect participant because that's not every patient that you have. And so they were like, guys, like we're not going to be able to enroll. We're not going to be like, that's not representative. And then a few years into the trial, then they removed the statin exclusion and they're like, oh yeah, that did not quite. So there were a lot of people that were being excluded for that. So it was kind of like bringing in that kind of expertise, or like the idealized world. And then what do we think we're actually going to be able to do? And then how we're going to be able to get the best science.
Yeah.
Right. And still do it.
Right. Yeah. Which I understand the reasoning on both sides, but you need both sides in order to figure out what the best way to move forward is.
Yes.
So which again goes back to like the beginning of our conversation. This whole building is dedicated to like bringing together those kind of minds so that people can execute these projects, which is really cool.
So exciting.
Yeah.
And before we wrapped up, we also asked Dr. Cortes if she had any pearls of wisdom or advice for us aspiring medical student, future researcher folks. And this is what she had to tell us.
Being open to research, even though I'm not the best person, because I was like, I'm not going to do this, but I kept on saying yes. and then at least, so I think being open, and then being open to also then how things will change, and it's not quite how you pictured it, it's not quite what your plan was, but then saying like, this is still great, and I'm still able to do so many things, even if it's not exactly how you pictured it.
And that's Dr. Cortes. We have put some links to her papers and some of the projects she's working on in the Barshop Institute in the description. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of the Saber Podcast. We would love to have you back again sometime soon. Be sure to like and subscribe, leave us a review if you feel so inclined, and if you have any questions, please email us at saber.podcast.outreach@gmail.com or find us on Instagram. And until next time, I have been Ren.
And I've been Lily.
And we will see you.
We will see
when
you.
we see you.